On this episode of AV Week, we continue our conversation live from InfoComm's AV Executive Conference. With us to talk is Jeff Wolf, Steve Greenblatt, and Brad Grimes. We cover all things, including what they're thankful for in the world of AV. All that and more, next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AV Week is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like Crestron. This is AV Week, episode 223, recorded Friday, November 20th, 2015. The AV Executive Conference, Part 2.
Ready.
AV Week.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AV Week. AV Week. This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. This is another special edition of AV Week. We're going to do this 2 weeks in a row here. We're live currently at the AV Executive Conference, InfoComm's yearly C-level business leadership conference. And so last week, or the last episode of AV Week, we talked with some folks, so we're going to do the same thing this time. First up is Steve Greenblatt, Chief Everything at Control Concepts. Welcome, sir.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Also with us is Mr. Brad Grimes from InfoComm.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely. I've been spending a lot of time with Brad this
Yeah.
week. And also with us is Jeff Wolf, Executive Vice President of Herman. How are you, sir?
Very well. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely. Jeff, we'll start with you because you guys, I met Chris last year, and actually he and I were in homework together. All right, and this was back when I used to run a independent programming house, and got a lot of great information from him, back and forth. But not only are you guys here as attendees, but you're also a sponsor of the event.
Yes.
So what do you guys as a sponsor get out of it?
So we've been a sponsor of the executive conference since the beginning, as well as the InfoComm 100, which of course now this is the new variation of that. And as a sponsor, Tim, I'll tell you, it's probably the most, from an ROI perspective, we get the highest return on our investment from a sponsorship like this, from a marketing perspective. And the return comes in several ways. First, it's important for us from a branding perspective to have our name out there from an industry perspective from a high level. And then as we go down, the notoriety, the relationships that we build through with the manufacturers, which is a very important strategy for us, as well as with the industry as a whole, really gives us a platform that perhaps otherwise we wouldn't have simply as an attendee, perhaps. So we find it to be a tremendous value from a sponsorship perspective to participate in these types of events.
It's interesting that you say that, because is it because you think the attendees are a little bit more focused here than maybe some others?
Absolutely. I really think, and we sponsor other industry events as well. It's a very important part of our marketing strategy, and yet we feel that here it's a different dynamic. First, more intimate, definitely more focused around the from a group perspective. And just today, I took note that, and maybe we'll talk more about that later, but from the homework exercise, just observing the dynamic that was created in each group and the post relationships that were developed just from that short time together was very impactful. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Mr. Grimes, you guys have put on a very nice event again this year. One of the things that we had talked about with a couple of folks, just kind of off the air and in the hallways and stuff, is the fact that this year feels like AVEC has kind of found its center again. So how do you guys go about making this event happen? I know that there's a council, not a council, but a group of volunteers involved. Yeah. But beyond that group, how does this all come together?
Well, and thanks, and I'm glad that everyone had a great time while they were down here, and I think it was a great event, and it means a lot more coming from everybody who was here to say that when we put something like this on there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and there's a lot of, will this work, won't this work? And we really don't know until we get down here what the effect is going to be. So we fret about it quite a bit, but we do have great support from the industry when we do this. Like you mentioned, there's a conference committee. These are folks who spend a lot of time looking at what was good and what wasn't so good last year, talking to different speakers. The speakers who presented this year, they all went through the committee, and the committee informed them about some of the issues facing the industry, and I think they all worked that into their presentations really well. So there was a lot more of that back and forth between the people who were presenting content and the people who were eventually going to absorb it. And so I think that kept everything on message. So there was a lot more of that this year, I think, and really, when you do it enough times, and we date all the way back to the InfoComm 100, and you get enough people coming down and giving you good, creative, and informative feedback, you start to hit on all the cylinders, and I think we're starting to do that. And really, it comes down to everybody who makes the trip and gets involved and does the homework and sits around. And for me, it's a true measure when I'm in the hallways while the session is going on that no one's in the hallways.
Yeah.
No one's coming out talking on their phones when people are presenting, because everybody here is really busy. So we've taken their time, they've given us their time. So we respect when they have other things to do, when they have meetings to take or the conference calls. But by and large, this was folks were in the room, and they were spending the time, and they knew that they invested their time in, and they were going to get the most out of it. And that's the most gratifying thing for us.
Yeah, Betsy said it more than once that we appreciate you giving us your most valuable asset, and that's their time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Mr. Greenblatt, this is not your first rodeo here. So what do you think of this year in comparing to other AVECs?
This one I felt really turned the corner. I couldn't put my finger on what was different about it, and now I think it dawns on me almost in this conversation is that we took the business information and we applied it to what we do, which is a little different from what we've done in the past, and that's probably a sign of the feedback that was provided from past conferences. But this one was it was intimate, it was tangible. People just had a good camaraderie. There were a lot of very easy takeaways, and some of the things we did. It wasn't the first time we're hearing, for people that attend different types of business conferences. But there was something about it that just tied it in and gave us something, gave us the ability to really grasp it. And a couple of things that I really liked were when we talked about is our business 3 years in the past or 3 years in the future, and I thought that was a really interesting exercise, and everybody was willing to share, and it was there was I think the growth that is going to come out of this conference is going to benefit the whole industry.
Yeah,
so people that missed it, I think, really missed out.
Yeah. Jeff, you and Steve has been talking a little bit about, you mentioned the homework. For someone who's sitting here listening to this, 40 years old, 50 years old, and hasn't had homework in a few years, explain that to them.
Sure. So really a great exercise where the group was tasked. We all split up into individual groups of 4 or 5 people, and we were tasked with drawing from the learnings of the day and how we could apply that in a fun scenario to create a compelling and differentiating business enterprise. And what was so interesting was they gave us a lot of fun things to work with, yet the thought processes that were used and the conversation that evolved, and it kept relating back to things that we learned throughout the day from our speakers and keynotes, and was really gratifying for me, because typically in the past, people would just, in hearing conversations, people would frown on the homework. Oh, I gotta go do this. It's really now become one of the highlights of the conference. And you're right, Brad. To see, literally, I never saw so few people in the hallways as I saw at this conference, where everybody was in the room and everybody was so engaged. And that whole process to come up with a final product at the end and have the opportunity to share it and present it in front of the group and vote on it just made it so much fun, but yet so really educational and a great overall experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Brad, what was your, you put this thing on, but you also sit in those sessions, and you're not, playing, Candy Crush on your phone. You're sitting there listening.
Don't tell anybody.
Okay. What are you taking away from this?
To me, one of the greatest things about the last couple of days was, so one of the major themes obviously was the experience economy and the fact that, and this is something that the board put in its strategic plan back when we launched it in 2013, was that we wanted to define this exceptional experience, this sort of differentiator of what the AV industry does. If all we did was sell systems all day, we wouldn't be where we are now, and we wouldn't be anywhere in 3 or 4 years. And that was a leap. It was something we're gonna try to communicate to our industry and our membership what it means to do more than just sell technology and solutions, and what it means to create an experience for customers, and how you think differently about that. And for me, as a communications person at InfoComm, it was like, okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, we're just going to start talking in those terms. We're going to make it part of our vernacular. It's the way we're going to talk about AV and AV systems. And this week, lots of people were talking in those terms. I mean, we were having conversations with people, and just people dropping it into random conversations about how they're creating experiences for their clients, how they're thinking beyond the system, and how they're thinking beyond, how they're going into the needs analysis, and how they're talking to end users and saying, what do you really do? I know what you think you need, but what do you really do? And how can I help you do that better? So that, to me, over the last couple of years, being the centerpiece of what we're trying to do for the industry, has been great to hear people talking in terms of experiences and talking in terms of what the customer really needs. And so that to me was the best part of this last couple of days. People were really talking in those terms.
Steve, what's one of your biggest things from this week?
I think the idea of how to involve your team. That was important to me, and it's one thing to have a message and to have a vision, but to have your team on board with it, and to make sure that everybody is supporting it and knows their role and believes in it. I think that's really what's going to help us succeed. I think that was talked about in the Joe Theismann part, and then also carried through in other parts of the sessions. So it's something I'm going to bring back.
All right, very good. We're going to kind of get away from AVEC. It's a great conference, and thank you guys for hanging out. But Jeff, you guys Herman is in an interesting position because you guys are subcontractors, right? Steve is as well, and that's where I was. From your vantage point, where are we? Where is the AV industry economically?
Yes, so it was interesting to hear today in some of the facts and figures that were shared first regarding the industry. It was great to hear. I guess he mentioned that we're growing at 11%, which is exceeding that growth of the GMP, and it's very encouraging. As we travel the country and talk to customers from a subcontracting perspective, we're learning more and more the importance of our role in this industry. And we're always reading about, there's always blogs and articles about the importance of extracting cost out of an organization and getting more efficient, and with the declining profit margins around hardware, et cetera. And our business is very well positioned to really bring value back to the system integrator today. And beyond the subcontractor labor and the national labor force, we continue to find more ways to bring value through providing engineering services and programming services and developing apps that bring efficiencies around the pre-sales piece of the business, and to help from an engineering perspective. So we spent a lot of time as a management team really studying and understanding where their pains are in the industry and where we can help bring value and create value and bring more efficiencies to our customers.
All right, very good. Steve, from your perspective, where are we?
I haven't seen the market this strong in a while.
Wow, okay.
It really is a lot of demand, a lot of positive sentiment, a lot of opportunity that looks like it's going to be in the future. Consultants are very busy, which means that we're going to be busy down the line. Probably gives us a year or two of security, I would hope. I think that things are changing and you need to change, and we talked about that a lot here. And I think that specialization is important, and that's one of the things that we're doing, is really trying to provide those services that are unique and I think have limited supply. So it's really I think the opportunities are great, but you have to keep your eyes open, and you have to be willing to take some chances, and you have to be willing to do things a little differently.
I think you guys, both of you, are in a very good position to kind of get the temperature of the industry. I really do. Brad, you talked to a lot of members throughout the year. Where do you think the industry is going?
Well, let me try to divide this answer into three parts. First of all, change is obviously huge, and change in the technologies they're coming out, the way people buy technology, the digitalization of technology. That's very important, and we do have to navigate that, and we have to adapt to that change. So that's the first pillar of what I think is going on right now. The second thing is that people dig AV. I mean, this people said it a few times this week. This is one of the greatest times to be in AV, and it's really because people see it everywhere. Dave Labuscus wrote a column recently in which he talked about that AT&T DirecTV commercial where all this stuff is being video mapped on the sides of buildings in New York, and it's really this awesome experience, and these people are looking up at these things. Now, Casablanca was never mapped onto the buildings of New York, but you get the idea. Things have been mapped all over the place. People have mapped waterfalls and other buildings and things like that. The point of the matter is people see it everywhere, and people are really into things, and we can stand around going, yeah, we do that. I do that. So it's this big icebreaker. It's this big conversation starter. People dig AV, and it's really the sweet spot right now. It's the most important time to be an AV professional. And then back to change, the third thing is an emphasis on what has not changed. What has not changed is that the experience is still an analog experience. I mean, yes, we can go digital a long way, but from that endpoint to that ear or to that eye is still an analog experience right now. And there's nobody who understands that better than the people at this conference and their companies and the AV integration professionals. Because yes, a lot of people can get into this industry. They'll want to because everybody sees it, and it's the hottest thing going right now is to create these experiences. That's why you get all sorts of associated trades trying to get into AV. But it's only these folks who understand that last mile, if you will, to the eye or to the ear is still a very analog experience, and it's very much about acoustics, and it's about lighting, and it's about color, and it's about all these things that AV professionals understand better than anybody else. So what hasn't changed is just as important, and being able to communicate that value to the customers is what's going to get you to seize on the change, seize on what everybody wants, and then be able to deliver it the way they want it, that nobody else can deliver it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right, guys, as we wrap up here, we're going to actually post this and release this the week after Thanksgiving. So we'll take a little different twist on it. Steve, what are you thankful for in AV?
Opportunity. The ability to find good people, and also for the people like you that contribute to this industry. I really feel like we're all in this together, and that we celebrate the industry when we do podcasts and when we come to events. And I have good friends, and I really value that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Grimes?
I'm thankful for excitement. I mean, we at InfoComm, we try to execute what our membership wants out of our headquarters in Fairfax and around the world and in committees and things like that. But really, as I was talking to someone earlier, it's when we come to someplace like this and we actually see the excitement, we see, okay, people think the same way, and the message is resonating, and people are trying to do the same thing, and we're all working towards a common goal, which is, the rising tide lifting all boats. And when people get excited about it, then you know that we've got a good thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, you'll have the last word here. What are you thankful for in AV?
Thank you. I'm thankful for first this industry being a very dynamic and exciting industry first and foremost, and secondly is the people in this industry are very special. And we always talk about this is a very small and intimate group, yet just having 2-3 days here to network and build relationships and collaborate and discuss. I'm very thankful for the quality of people in this industry that we have the opportunity to engage with and learn from and grow with.
All right. That's going to do it. Mr. Brad Grimes from InfoComm International. How can people find you or InfoComm?
Well, everyone should follow at InfoComm on Twitter, and the website's infocom.org. I also tweet, and if I do it well, InfoComm may retweet me, but if they don't, it's bgrimes at bgrimesdc.
Well, and I'm looking up here. Don't go anywhere yet, because Betsy Jaffe, who previously was in charge of communications and media relations, actually. She is now the Executive Vice President of Member Services. So she has a new Twitter handle, and I cannot find it to save my life. Betsy for Pro AV. So
that's Betsy.
Betsy,
and she's got a lot of things
AV.
planned for members next year.
Yeah, she does. So you might want to follow her too. Mr. Greenblatt, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Glad to be here. It's always fun.
All right. How can people find you or Control Concepts?
ControlConcepts.net is the company website, and I'm on many social media platforms. That's Steve Greenblatt. Keep it easy.
All right. Very good. Mr. Wolf, thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for having me. Really enjoyed it. You can find us at HermanAVGroup.com or jwolf@HermanProAV.com.
All right. Very good.
And my name, of course, is Tim Albright. Don't follow me, but go by the website, if you would please, AVNation.tv. AVNation.tv, you'll find this program and a host of others. If you're interested in keeping up to date on what's happening in the world of AVNation, sign up for our newsletter. Easy to do so. You can either go by the website, AVNation.tv, or now you can text your email address. Just send AVNation, all one word, to 22828. AVNation to 22828. You get a little back and forth. They'll ask you for your email address, and you'll be signed up right away. That's all for us here at AVNation and AV Week. Thanks so much for listening. It's all the time we have for AV Week.